Welcome to OState Daily. Casey Porter here. I cannot wait to get this show started. Scott McKinley, first of all, you got to golf today. Congratulations on that. Your house is almost built, and Eric Morris is absolutely tearing it up on the transfer portal. Things are looking good as an Oklahoma State fan. I am so excited.
Yeah, he's tearing it up in the transfer portal. I tore up an entire golf course today. It was a good time. Was had by all.
Last time I went golfing, I think I was 12 under.
Yeah, I think I put 12 golf balls under the water. That's what I did today. But no, it was a typical Oklahoma day. It's one of those things. If you can golf in Oklahoma, you can golf anywhere because the wind is just it wreaked havoc on everything today.
Yeah. Now, when I say 12 under, I don't mean 12 under par. I mean 12 beers under. Right. That's my definition of 12 under. Hey, Huge news over the weekend. Huge news today. Today, Wyatt Young, Caleb Hawkins, and then yesterday, Drew Mestamaker. We've already had a show on that. But that's the triplets, and then you have a safety, and then you have a couple of other people. Oklahoma State currently is the second-ranked team in the transfer portal. That's going to continue to go. We talked about last night. You know this better than I do. The donors are stepping up here. So it's exciting that we got who we wanted. I think everybody thought as long as we put the financial presentation out there that the players from North Texas would be ours, if that kind of deal. I think the thing really to focus in on as an Oklahoma State fan is that I'm not sure Oklahoma State, short of one person in Boone Pickens, has ever been this invested in trying to make Oklahoma State relevant in sports from an overall perspective with this amount of urgency. I think that's the thing to be the most excited about Oklahoma State athletics right now.
Yeah, I think, and this has been said before about Boone Pickens is yes, Boone Pickens gave a lot of money. I don't want to bring down anything that he did, but the other thing that he also did is he inspired other people to step up and sometimes you need a leader to show you what's possible. I think the biggest key, in my opinion, from our recruiting standpoint, was getting the quarterback. And the reason why I think that was such an important, obviously we all understand it's a very important position, all those kind of things on the field. But the thing is somebody was asking me the other day, like, well, don't we need to get an offensive line? I said, yes. But at the same time, donors don't get super excited because you sign some offensive tackle, even though we know how important it is. But they will get excited when you sign a quarterback that threw for X number of yards. He can bring the hype, if you will. So to me, I think that was the biggest key to kicking off our entire recruiting cycle. This cycle is we had to get the quarterback, and we got that. And we've got the pieces that we all know that we need to recruit around him. Those pieces are coming together as well. So I think Coach Morris is moving fast, and I think he's trying to get as good of a team on the field as he can in a very, very short time span.
So I know last time we talked, you were talking about, maybe year 2 you start showing improvement here, this or that. Year 3, maybe you can start talking about bigger expectations than that. I'll say this, Scott, and you and I almost never disagree on anything, but when you don't sign a quarterback for $7 million for 2 years, $3.5 million, almost as much as your head coach is making with a 3-year timeline, you just don't do that. That's a 2-year contract. That tells me that Eric Morris and Oklahoma State, their timeline is pretty fast.
Yeah, and I think that, I thought about that after we had that conversation, and I still think that 2 to 3 years is a reasonable
correct
expectation from a fan standpoint. However, as we all know with the transfer portal, things can go really bad really quick, but you also can get really good really quick. It's just a matter of if you play your cards right, if you invest your money in the right players. And again, all those other factors that go into building a football team. But I think the other thing, and to your point, is I see the player, the talent that is coming in. Again, I think I'll say right now, I think we're going to make a bowl game next year, and I think that's going to happen. Again, I could be wrong. It's football. The ball bounces funny ways. With Coach Morris, and I don't want to set any expectation that I'm expecting a championship next year or anything like that. But I think that we can get to a bowl game next year. I really think that we've got enough talent with the schedule we've got. That I think that is a realistic expectation.
Okay, so let's kind of address. You're very level-headed about these things. No coaches were retained. Almost nobody other than Gavin Freeman was retained. There were some good players on that roster. There were some pretty darn good coaches that did not get retained. Your thoughts on that?
I think some of it was we needed to start, everything needed to start fresh. I really think that's what a lot of it came down to. It doesn't mean that the previous guys can't coach. We talked about Rob Glass. He's forgotten more about strength and conditioning than most people are ever going to know. But I think a lot of it just came down to we got right now we got bad mojo. We got the culture's not good. We need a complete revamp. And I think that's what Coach Morris is really trying to do here. The other thing I think that does give me a little bit of confidence though is, we know how many departures we've had out of here from whether it be from a coaching standpoint or whether it be from a playing standpoint. But then I look at some of the other teams in the league, and there's been they're having to deal with turnover too. Maybe not to the extent that we are, but boy, I tell you, Iowa State's having to deal with it. You see, they had about as many people in the portal as we did when Campbell left to go to Penn State.
And they didn't have a Drew Mestemaker in their back pocket either.
Exactly. Which and this is one thing I didn't want to say is, some people questioned our timing or when we fired Gundy.
Yeah, no.
That's what I'm saying is would you rather be in Iowa State shoes right now, or would you rather be with us? Okay, we had time to evaluate. We got the guy that we wanted as a head coach. He had time then to go out and recruit guys and talk to guys that he knows he have played for him. In my opinion, I think that looking back, that was the right move, because this last year, it was not going to be a banner year, even if you kept Gundy, and then all that does is just puts you behind the eight ball moving into next year.
Let's play a little hypothetical. I don't usually like to do that. I usually like to analyze facts, that kind of deal, and I'm not really one that even reports on scoops and that kind of thing. I like to wait for it to come out and then analyze the facts after they come out. That's more of my style. That's what I do on the Dodgers Daily thing. That's what I do here on OState Daily. So, so I don't like to get into the hypothetical thing, but let's get into this. Okay, let's say that Coach Gundy isn't, for those, and there's going to be a lot of them. I mean, Coach Gundy was a legend, right? And rightfully so. There's going to be people attached to him that are probably still pissed at the way we handled it. Fine, that everybody's entitled to their opinion. Okay, so let me throw a hypothetical at you that we keep Coach Gundy. The season goes sideways like 2024 did. What do the crowds look like for the last 3 home games?
I think it's terrible.
Yes.
I think that's if nothing else, it's one of those things where, one, it was about the timing, because you've got to, there's no sense in waiting till the end of the season to do it. And then now you've hamstrung your new coach for the next season. But I think the other thing that also came down to is people, the no shirt guys, that kind of still happened. I don't even think any of that stuff would have happened if we'd have just kept Gundy, because then it looks like, well, we're just content to have everything fall apart and we're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So no, I throughout this entire process, I think Chad Weiberg has handled this as well as it can be handled. I think he handled it as professionally as it could be handled. And again, we all want Coach Morris to succeed. Time will tell exactly, how well things are going to work out. But to this point, I got to give a thumbs up. I think, in my personal opinion, some people will disagree with it, but my personal opinion, give a 2 thumbs up to our athletic director.
Yeah, it would have looked like Oklahoma State's being reactive instead of proactive, right? And being proactive is scary because it's easy just to kind of stay with what you know and that kind of deal and not move forward. But being proactive, especially for a non-blue blood, a place at Oklahoma State that hasn't been separated from OU for a long time, that we're not in the Big Ten or the SEC. It's a scary situation to go out into those weeds and to say, okay, well, we're going to get to remove ourselves from maybe the greatest quarterback, a guy who's been here for 40 some odd years. He's a son of the state. I mean, we have reporters that have been covering him since he was 15 years old in multiple sports. It's a hard thing to do, right? But if we do that and the crowds aren't very good and it looks like Oklahoma State's just continuing to crumble, okay, which is what it would have looked like. Instead, what we did is we got out ahead of it. We gave the fans the idea that, hey, we are fixing this. We're in the process of fixing this. Just hang in there with us. Because of that, we continued to fill Boone Pickens, short of the Iowa State game. which is, I'm going to label it the most lame duck game I've ever been to at Oklahoma State. I don't blame any OSU fan whatsoever for not going to that game because we'd already hired our coach, right? So because we were proactive, we gave the message to our fans, we are doing everything we can to fix this. The Oklahoma State fans, and in a very elite way, continue to show up. And I'm of the opinion we might not get an Eric Morris if the fans didn't show how big time they are in that particular period of time. Maybe that's too much tinfoil. Maybe he would have came anyways, but I think that slam dunked it.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where it gave, because Chad mentioned this when he was talking about the coaching search, is it gave them the time to do it right. One of the things I think that I'm sure all athletic directors would say is whenever they're looking for a head coach, particularly with football, we know how fast sometimes these things happen, right? Sometimes it's literally a coach is fired one week and they hire a guy the next. It's amazing. My dad was a professor for a number of years, and he always used to laugh that it takes them 6 months to a year to hire a new dean of a college, but it literally will take them a week or two to hire a football coach. But the way that Chad did it, he actually was able to take his time and actually go through a true process in finding the right guy. And we'll probably never know exactly how many conversations were had, how many other guys were interviewed. But I think after that amount of time, I think Chad got the guy he wanted.
Yep. What are you most excited about?
Oh man, I think what I'm excited about is just we got, if nothing else, game one, what are we going to see? Yeah. That's in a weird way. That's kind of, that in and of itself is kind of exciting. I think. I think what I'm excited most about is when Mike Gundy, what put Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State football on the map is we had an offense that was electric. And we may not win the ball game, but boy, we're going to have some plays. Bullett's going to be tired from running laps all day. That's what I want to see us get back to. And it's because it's one of those things where and I know the old saying, defense wins championships. Don't want to say the defense isn't important, but at the same time, offense draws eyeballs. It's one of the things where I've also looked at on the officiating side is anytime there's a rule change, it almost always benefits the offense. People want to see, the eye-popping plays. And you'll get that with offense. So I think that's really what I'm looking forward to is let's get back to scoring touchdowns, instead of having to go, 3 and out. I just, and again, that doesn't mean that, okay, we may come out next year and the defense is a strength again. 2021 was a great year because our defense was absolutely phenomenal. But that was kind of that was the exception. I wouldn't say that was the rule. So to me, I think that's what I'm looking most forward to is obviously we've got some playmakers on offense. Let's light up that scoreboard again.
Okay, there's a lot of pressure on Eric Morris, and I'm going to say that I'm going to use that word pressure. I know Coach Lutz in his pregame conference yesterday, coaches don't like to use the word pressure because it's just not a word you like to use around your players a whole lot. I'm going to use the word pressure, and here's why I say that. All of the guardrails that former coaches have been able to have, terrible facilities, okay? We can't beat OU. They're a blue blood. They've been a blue blood for 50 years. We can't beat Texas. We can't compete with them financially. All those kinds of things. All those guardrails are gone. There is zero excuses for any football coach, any basketball coach, any coach at this point, especially football. Let's say football, okay? To not win a Big 12 championship, at least be in a contention for it, and probably win one every third or fourth year. The guardrails are gone. There are no excuses. There is nothing to hide behind now. That in and of itself is pressure to true competitors, which I think Eric Morris is, the true underdog, which Oklahoma State's an underdog program, no doubt about it. I think that word pressure to him is exciting. I think that's a challenge. I think he sees that as a challenge. So I think the guardrails are off, Scott.
Yeah, I agree. And I said that, prior to 2024 when, things were changing. Oklahoma State has enough resources to compete in the Big 12.
Yes.
We do. And one thing I did want to mention that I'm kind of starting to see is, yes, you still got your blue blood programs. They're not going anywhere. But what I am starting to see is you're starting to see there's a handful of programs that are not traditional blue bloods that are starting to kind of, in a weird way, kind of an unexpected way, I'd almost say, they're kind of starting to creep up into the national conversation because the transfer portal is a weird thing that, okay, none of us really like it, but at the same time, it can create situations where if a coach plays it just right and you really evaluate players and you get the right combination of guys together, you can go a long way. You look at it like look at what Indiana's doing. I mean, obviously, we'd all like to do what Indiana's doing, because they're, a lot of their guys were not 5-star guys. They weren't, the high dollar guys or whatever. But they played Moneyball, as they say. We've talked about that before. So I think that's really what it comes down to is how well can Coach Morris take the funds that are available and build the best team around that. And I think the other thing is in order to succeed, I think that can be done fairly easily. But what I think is going to be very, very difficult in the new era is sustaining that, because I mean, you can catch lightning in a bottle once, but are you going to be able to sustain that? Which and hats off to Coach Gundy with the old system. He did a great job of sustaining success. And my hope is that Coach Morris will be able to. But I will say I think that's going to be the biggest challenge moving forward for him is going to be, okay, yeah, we're hitting great on the transfer portal now because he's got a lot of guys from North Texas that he knows can play. He knows they can play. We know Messmaker's a good quarterback. We know Hawkins is a good running back. We know those things. But then year 2 and 3, 4, when he doesn't have those guys to bring in, how well of a job does he do evaluating those guys moving forward?
He's always done a good job in the past. Incarnate war. I mean, I know it's been lower levels, but again, it is what it is. That's the level he was at. That was the challenge in front of him, and he conquered those challenges. So I think you have to be, if that is your statement to make, I think you have to be encouraged. It's kind of like you take a kid, he grows up in junior high, then he plays 9th grade ball, then JV. He's never played varsity before, but at every sample you've given him, every challenge you've given him, he has come through and done exactly what he's supposed to, or she. So there's no reason to doubt that person. I think that's where Oklahoma State fans should be excited right now.
Yeah, no, and I'm not downing. I'm just saying that's the challenge that I think is going to be thrown out there. But what I know of athletes, and I know you'd agree on this, the best athletes, that's why they love to do what they do.
No doubt.
And Morris was an athlete. He's a head coach. They like a challenge. They don't want the easy road. They want it. They want to be able to say, we overcame adversity. That's their, one of the favorite lines of, when you do the post-game interviews, we overcame adversity. Well, that's kind of what life is all about, not to get too philosophical, but it's the same thing with sports. And I think Eric Morris is definitely a very much a competitor.
Yeah. I mentioned last night, I like the transfer portal. I'm weird. Maybe that's the contrarian in me, because being in coaching ranks for my entire career, I've seen so many coaches that I'm like, man, wow, it's amazing you get away with that kind of deal, right? You've seen it, Scott, umpiring. It's like they're always reactive. It's always yelling at the players about what they didn't do instead of telling them what they should have. How many times have you seen that, especially at the high school? Just over and over and over. Yeah. That doesn't fly in the transfer portal, right? I mean, adios. That was my statement last night. But let's not get into that part of it because I think I covered that pretty good. I honestly believe that the transfer portal benefits the non-blue bloods way more than it benefits the blue bloods, because, like, say in the 1980s, until they put scholarship limits in the 80s or 90s, maybe 90s, OU would go get a player that they knew would never play for them, okay, just so they wouldn't go to OSU. And so their 4th-string guy might be as good as our 1st-string guy, just so we can't have them. That doesn't happen anymore. So from that perspective, a guy who's sitting on the bench at Alabama would rather be a starter at Oklahoma State. I think we've seen that. I don't think that's an opinion. I think that's pretty much fact at this point. And then also a couple of other factors. Caleb Hawkins, let's give an example there. So many times you say, well, how in the hell did you miss on that guy? Well, it's easy. He's from North Rock Creek. He was probably used in a different way. He was probably 25, 30 pounds lighter. He'd turn into a man in college, right? Okay. His body's shaped, all sorts of things. So it gives places like Oklahoma State a second chance at guys they might have missed the first time around. And I can't tell you how many. Oh, the guy that went to Alabama, the running back out of Tulsa East Central that played in the NFL about 10 or 15 years ago that Oklahoma State could have had. And then also, how many times has Oklahoma State come in like second for a 4-star recruit, someone like that, to where, okay, well, they came in second, they're going to go to LSU, that's done. It was kind of neat that we were in the discussion. Now being second is a really big deal because as soon as that player wants to transfer, you're now number one. So I like the transfer portal for many different reasons. Tonight's reasons are those.
Yeah. I think it's because I agree with you to that point. I think all those notes you just mentioned are valid. I think the hardest part, I think from a fan standpoint, we went over to Tulsa yesterday and we walk around the mall a little bit. They got a sports shop there. And, you can buy, any kind of memorabilia you want. I mean, they had about 1 million Patrick Mahomes jerseys.
Yeah.
That kind of deal. I think that's from the selfish fan standpoint, it's difficult because we want to get behind a certain player, that kind of thing. And it's like they're only there for a year. They might be, well, even if they do all 4 years, we know they could transfer at any time. I think that's hard for fans sometimes. But to your point, and I agree with you, because we've actually had situations like that where we finished second in the recruiting battle, but yet because of the relationship that we built, well, you know what? Bama's not treating my guy right. You know what? Hey, I'm going to call up Coach Morris. He's a good guy. Let's see if I can go transfer to Oklahoma State and see what we can do. And the other thing I think that also can happen, and like you said, it's kind of weird because when you have this much movement in and out, it also, like I mentioned earlier, it creates a situation where, okay, there could be some teams that are non-blue bloods that, they kind of hit things just exactly right. Case in point, Indiana. They're one of the worst teams in college football history, and right now they're probably, in my opinion, they're probably the odds-on favorite to win the thing. Now they may win it, they may not, but they're right up there with everybody. So
you've umpired a lot of baseball. I've coached a lot of baseball. I know which lineup I would rather have. Would you rather have a lineup that does super amount of damage 1 through 4 and then falls off a cliff? 5 through 9, how many times have you seen that at the high school level, right? Where, yeah. Hey, if you get through about the 4 hole, okay, just throw strikes. And let's throw strikes, make the routine plays. We're okay. That's most high schools, actually. So would you rather have that lineup, or would you rather have, say, 2 or 3 really, really, really freaking good offensive players and then 6 more guys in the lineup that are also good? So kind of what I'm saying is, would you rather pay all this money for 2 or 3 guys and overpay for a couple of players that are really good and then have lesser talent around them? Or would you rather maybe give up a Wendell Gregory so you can have a more complete roster that's better across the board? Which one's better for an Oklahoma State type of roster?
My thinking is I think it's better just to have the complete. And my reasoning for that, it also comes down to also the type of sport. I've said for years, football's the ultimate team sport.
Yes.
You can have the best quarterback in the world, but if he's sitting on his back because you can't block, can't protect him, I don't really care what kind of arm he's got. You got a great running back. Doesn't matter. If they can't run block, it really doesn't matter. So in football, in my opinion, you can't have a true, like you said with baseball, it's a good analogy where you've got that guy that's just the auto out. You know what I mean? Where you can't have that in football. So in my opinion, it's better just, okay, let's try to put together as good, solid quality of a team as we can, which really, again, and I know I'm probably overusing this analogy, but that's kind of what Indiana has done. Outside, Mendoza is a very good quarterback. They got a very good running back, but outside of that, I don't see a lot of just superstar, power guys. Now, I'm sure some of those guys will go to the league. I'm sure they will. But they're well coached. They're disciplined. They work as a unit. They're veteran players. That's the other thing I notice about that roster. They don't have a bunch of young guys. They got guys that have been there, done that. They know the routine. They know how hard you have to work. They understand discipline, what they're eating, and all those kind of things. So no, to me, that's for me with Oklahoma State. We've got to. You can't put all your money on the quarterback and then not sign anybody else. You can't do that. It's just not going to work.
So I see this going like, hey, we're signing these top 3 guys, right? And we have a comment here from Okie Light. Great comment. Now that we have the big 3, do we really want any more North Texas players? I think you'll end up with 3 or 4 more. I think you'll end up with probably 6 or 7 North Texas players? Or do you swing for Power 4 type of guy? So I guess kind of what I'm saying here, I addressed this last night. I'm curious your thoughts, though. So you overpay for the Drew Mestamaker. You overpay for maybe the Caleb Hawkins, the Wyatt Young, the guys that you had to have. And here's why you have to have Drew Mestamaker, okay? Wyatt Young, Caleb Hawkins. They're the magnets that draw everybody else in. So, like, whenever the Dodgers got Shohei Ohtani, every other free agent wanted to play for the Dodgers because they wanted to play for Shohei Ohtani, okay? That's the Ohtani economy is what the Dodgers call that. So now that you got the best quarterback in the transfer portal, now you have Caleb Hawkins, now you have one of the best receivers in the transfer portal, you have one of the hottest coaches out there. That's a magnet. So that's why you had to overpay for those 3 guys.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's because that was the strategy from the get-go. And like I said earlier, I think that also is going to energize the donor base. They're going to get excited because now Coach Morris can say, look, guys, I got the quarterback. I got the running back. Here's the deal. I need to get a couple more offensive linemen. We need to replace a couple of edge rushers on the side. Hey, can you chip in a little bit here? Can we go get some quality guys there too? So no, I think in short, I think my message would be, I think the rebuild is well underway. They just got to keep working. And again, like I said before, I'm also going to be watching spring football a lot closer than I probably would in the past. Because I think I think it's going to be very interesting to watch what happens in the spring.
So we have a comment here from Scott Swiden. The Texas Tech model is they spent almost all their money on defense last year. So they already had their quarterback. They already had Barrett Morton. They already had several receivers, as Scott is acknowledging here. So now that you have the big 3, if you're Eric Morris, do you spend almost all the rest of your funds on defense or offense?
Some people are going to disagree with me, but in my opinion, I think you go offense. I really think
just make one side so good that the defense it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah,
that's your chance.
I think the thing I look at with building the offense, and we had this a lot under Coach Gundy early on, is we knew we were never out of the game. It is, yes. Again, I don't want to say the defense isn't important, but being able to score at any time, that I don't know, it gives you so many more options. Plus, you get to dictate a little bit of the tempo of the game, kind of the momentum of the game. So, in my opinion, I think you still go offense.
Yeah.
Give me 2 seconds.
Absolutely. And Oklahoma State, the thing about Eric Morris and the way that the offense is going to run is that it looks like they're going to score fast. So, I mean, part of the problem with stacking a defense versus stacking an offense is I think it's going to be hard on the defense anyways, because this is an offense that's going to probably go pretty fast.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I will say about the up-tempo offense is obviously if there's an advantage to be pushed there by going fast, obviously do it. The point is, look, if the offense continues to go down and score, we're going to win the ball game, right? The only thing that I am seeing, though, and I'm actually seeing this a little bit in high school sometimes now, is when your entire offense is predicated on going fast all the time, how many slowdowns do we have in college football? You either got an injury, you got a replay,
right,
you got a media timeout, it's great when you can push the momentum and it makes sense to do so, absolutely. But you can't predicate your entire offense on we're going to go fast all the time, because there's going to be some stoppages. That's just, next time I encourage everybody, next time you watch a college football game, watch and see how many stoppages there are, whether the officials didn't set the chains right, or somebody's hurt, or there's a replay, you name it, 100 different things that could happen. So,
yep. You better play, Scott Swiden saying, you better pay closer attention to the teams still alive and their defense and physicality. I believe our best teams had NFL close secondary. We haven't been able to cover air since 2021.
I don't disagree with that. Our secondary has just been absolutely. The last couple of years, there were times I literally don't even know what we were doing. We're just lost. And I've said that before too. That there's a difference that if you're in the right place and the other guy's just a little bit faster, okay, I mean, I can live with that. But when you're letting guys go 10, 15 yards in the open field like we've been doing the last couple of years, we can't be doing that anymore. That just you cannot. We got to be closer than that. And my hope is that's what we're going to be doing. We just in real short, we got to get better at that. You got to be in the right spot. If you have so many busts in the secondary, I really don't care how fast you are if you're 15, 20 yards out of position.
Yeah. So. I think another thing too, and I don't mean to sound pessimistic here, but I'm not looking to be Indiana next year. I'm just looking to be good. I mean, one of those teams that is substantially better. So I don't disagree with the defense thing, but I'll say this. I think you have to take this in stages. I think to be a Final Four team, like Scott's alluding to, the teams that are left, yeah, obviously you have to be good at everything, okay? I mean, that's in every sport. But I think the first step for Oklahoma State is to get back to being exciting, get back to playing a high-flying, fun brand of offensive football and winning your games at home. That's what Mike Gundy did in his early years with Oklahoma State, even in the years where we weren't competing for Big 12 titles. So I don't disagree with the fact that, yes, you need to have a great defense, but I think you have to take it step by step, and the first step is to actually have the offense that we are looking forward to thinking we're going to have.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other thing about the home, and this is an angle that I don't think a lot of people think about is, when people are buying tickets and going to the games, donating to the NIL, all those kind of things, when they go to a home football game, they're going for an experience, right? It's entertainment, whatever you want to call it. It's an experience. And football, well, sports in general, but football really has this, is you can have all kinds of fun plays, you can have all kinds of great tackles, emotional game, but if you come out on the wrong end of the game, it totally changes the type of day that you had. Everything else, you went to Eskimo Joe's, got some cheese fries, it was great. You went to a great tailgate, met up with some good buddies, all that kind of stuff. You had a great time. But then we end up on the wrong end of the scoreboard at the end of the night. It totally changes your recollection of how that day went. It's funny how that works.
Yep. So when I say the term Moneyball for a place like Oklahoma State, what does that mean to you?
To me, we've got to find value in guys that others have either overlooked or they've just misevaluated for whatever the reason. And we've seen that in a lot of different sports. Guys are downgraded for a host of different reasons that aren't. Sometimes they're legitimate, sometimes they're not. Like if you were to look at like a Wes Welker, type of player. Well, he's too short.
David Glidden.
Yeah.
Josh Cooper.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're slot receivers, guys. They're extremely quick. They got great hands. Nobody can cover them. You can slip them under some coverages sometimes. They're great. They're great ball players. I think that's something that, because I've seen the same thing happen in the other direction. I've seen kids that were offensive linemen in high school that were 350 pounds, and I mean they look the part. They're not 350. They're 350 pounds of muscle, but they've got terrible footwork. That it can work both ways. There's some guys that they're told that they're the 5-star and everything's going to be great, and they're not. And there's other guys that were not, told they were going to be anything, and they end up being great ball players. So the goal for Oklahoma State, I think, is how do we maximize the available dollars to put the best team on the field that we can. And again, everybody's trying to do that. There's very few schools out there that are just writing blank checks. Now the big one everybody knows is the Big 12. Texas Tech's kind of writing blank checks right now. But again, I still question, can that go on forever? And I realize that their donor out there has got an awful lot of money. I recognize that completely. But at a certain point, are you really going to want to continue giving $20-30 million a year just to buy players? I don't know. We'll see. 10 years from now, I may be proven completely wrong. But I question that. But no, I again, to reiterate,
they better win. They better win. Yeah. If there's no return on investment when you're investing that much, it's going to go away.
Yeah, exactly. Because at a certain point, you're just to say, well, why am I giving money when we're doing all this?
I can give $10 million less and get this product, right? That kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny with head coaching salaries. You know what? My dad's always said that, if you give me a tenth of the salary, I'll do a tenth of good of a job.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Moneyball to me, and again, this is probably my bias because I cover the Dodgers way more than I cover Oklahoma State. That's the side I spend probably 90% of my time on. So you're going to say, well, how in the hell are the Dodgers and Oklahoma State related? And I'm going to tell you, they're identical. It's going to match up identically in terms of how you build this thing through a Moneyball perspective. And when people hear Moneyball, they think like the Oakland A's, like where you just go getting every cheap player and do it through analytics. That's not what actually Moneyball has turned into nowadays. So here, just go look at the Los Angeles Dodgers roster, okay? The only players that they gave big contracts to were superstars. So the only players that you overpay for are the Shohei Ohtanis, the Mookie Betts, the Freddie Freemans. Will Smith, the hell, they didn't overpay for him. Max Muncy has maybe the most efficient contract in baseball. Everybody not named Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman is an underpay for the Dodgers, to be honest with you. That's what Moneyball is that you overpay for the guys that you have to overpay for. Drew Mestamaker, Caleb Hawkins, Wyatt Young, your magnets, right? Your superstar guys, and then you find the best value everywhere around them. That's what the teams that win at every single level in every sport, that's how they do it. That they don't just like if the Dodgers go out and just sign, like right now Kyle Tucker's available. Well, he wants 10 years. The Dodgers don't mind paying the money, but they don't want to give a 10-year contract, right? You could equate that to money for Oklahoma State. So one of the things that makes organizations separate, like the Dodgers, why they're winning and the Yankees and the Mets aren't, and the Mets spent just as much money as the Dodgers did, was that there actually was restraint. They actually they've allowed themselves to have flexibility every single year by only giving big contracts to the superstars. That's the model we're seeing here at Oklahoma State, I do believe.
I agree. I agree completely. I think that's well, and again, the question I would say is, okay, well, if we and I believe you're right, we probably overpaid a little bit for Mestmaker, but at the same time, it's one of those things where if he comes in and he lights it up just like he did, man, we even got him at a bargain. I mean, it all depends on the production. But I think the other thing that we also look
absolutely
at, I mean,
but only the superstars can come through for that price is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yes.
Yeah. A little bit above average edge rusher isn't going to come through for an overpay more times than not. That's what Moneyball means. You play the odds. That guy is going to be an overpay versus Drew Mestamaker, the superstar, is going to actually live up to what you pay him, even though you overpaid for him originally. That's what Moneyball means. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is you look at it from a revenue standpoint. How many people want to go see Shohei Ohtani bat?
Correct.
I do.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with Mestmaker. Like I was saying before, I'm excited just to go see. Hey, you never know what. Let's go see what this guy's got. If nothing else, let's go buy some tickets to the first couple games. Let's go.
You want to bet that getting those 3 is going to help season tickets?
Oh yeah. Guarantee it.
That's why you overpay. Yeah.
So no, I think the biggest thing that I see out of OSU, and again, I want to commend Chad Weiberg for this, is we have had you can tell there has been a plan. You can tell there's a strategy.
Oh my gosh. More than we'll ever know, Scott.
Yeah. And that's, I think to me, I appreciate that more than anything else because look, we've all, you've been coaching long enough. You ever put a strategy together for a game and it just didn't work out. Okay.
Every time.
Yeah.
In some fashion or form, no game plan ever works like you expect it to.
Right.
Some better than others.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes it works great. Sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's the thing that I appreciate the most is just that we had a plan. We're executing it. And I do think we're going to see some pay dirt on it eventually. Now, again, as fans, as excited as you and I are, and I think all of our fans, we're starting to get some excitement for football next year. We still got to be patient and understand that where we're at and where we're trying to go. There's some pretty good distance there right now.
Yeah, there's some edge rushers we have from Okie Light here. Some young edge guys leaving blue blood schools. Can we get one? Sacks and turnovers are as exciting as touchdowns. So that is a perfect point about the defense. The perfect defense to match this offense, okay, in my opinion, is one that 2011. You create turnovers, you create negative plays, tackles for losses, sacks. So the guys that I would overpay for are the ones that can create negative plays. The guys that I look at and I go, that guy can go sack the quarterback. That guy can cover one-on-one. That guy can intercept the ball. That guy has ball skills. Those are the guys that I say, hey, yeah, maybe he's a little bit more expensive than I want to go get, but we have to have a defense that creates negative plays for the other team, creates turnovers, because if we get 2 more possessions than the other team, the way that our offense functions, we win 95% of those games. Those are the guys I think you have to go target on defense.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to I remember the old Big 12 days back when Mike Leach was out at Tech. It was literally, you didn't even worry about the clock. It was, all right, well, you go into halftime. Well, they got the ball first, so they've had one more possession than we did. I mean, yes. I remember those days. Those days were fun,
Yeah.
But no, I think commentary is absolutely right that's what we've got to do. The other thing I look at with defense is people think it's just we've got to put together 3 good plays and get a stop. But you think about it, if you get them behind the sticks, as they say, and like you said, tackle for a loss, that's what causes them to have to punt the football. Because the thing is, you think about it, if they only get 3 or 4 yards per play going forward, they'll keep moving the sticks. Eventually, you've got to get a stop for no gain, or you've got to be able to get a tackle for a loss or a turnover, sacks, something like that. So I think that, to your point, I agree with you. I think that's really what you're looking for. Because with that 2011 team, we created so many turnovers. We gave that offense so many more opportunities. I mean, and eventually, when you got an offense like that, they're going to score. Yeah. And eventually, we'd light up the scoreboard so much that the other team just flat couldn't catch up.
Home runs are a mistake to a point. I agree with that to a point. I think there's guys that set it up to allow themselves to hit more home runs. That's not a mistake at all, because they understand the strike zone. They know which pitches to strike at, to swing at. They do their homework in terms of which pitcher does what. Maybe the manager knows how to play don't steal this guy to make sure we get this certain matchup or that certain matchup. Maybe your lineup's good enough to where hey, this guy's going to get good pitches to hit because he has protection behind him. So the home run is a mistake thing. From a mechanical and an approach perspective, I agree with that. But from an actual results perspective, I think it's anything but a mistake. I think it's a result of really diligent work that you do on the offensive side. I think the same thing about turnovers. I think whenever you have an offense that makes the other team's offense feel like they're always having to keep up, as well as I do, when you feel like you're having to keep up with somebody else, that's much more difficult. I mean, just like being in the front of the line versus being in the back of the line, right? I mean, it's one's harder than the other. So kind of what I'm saying is there's no other better way, in my opinion, to force other teams into mistakes than make them feel like they have to be perfect on the offensive side of the ball. Because if they do punt 2 or 3 times, it's like when Alan Bowman was turning the ball over early in his career, he was saying, well, I'm only getting 1 possession, so I can't just throw the ball away and punt on 3rd down because then I'm not going to get the next possession. I'm feeling like I have to go force a play. That's how you create turnovers from the other team, is you make them feel, the other team's quarterback feel like, I can't just dump the ball down on 3rd and 12 and punt the ball. I can't just eat a play on 2nd and 10 after you stop a run play or whatever, because we cannot afford to punt. So I actually have to try to thread this ball in here, because the only way we can win this game is to keep up. So from that perspective, I think forcing turnovers can be a direct byproduct of the aggressive style of offense you play.
Yeah, I agree with every statement you just made. The other thing I would add on that is the nice thing with football is turnovers are kind of the great equalizer.
Yes.
In my opinion, that if you are going up against a team that maybe on paper's got a little bit more talent, the way you beat them, force turnovers. I mean, it's like anything else, because if everything's straight up and everybody's 0-0 on the turnovers and everything else of them being equal, on paper they beat you. But you go out there and you force 2 or 3 4 turnovers, now all of a sudden it's a great equalizer. The other thing also with football is such a momentum game. I mean, if you get a turnover and your offense just takes the ball right down and scores, that it will deflate the other team and your team. I mean, they just. And I've seen this so many times. It's such a snowball effect with the momentum. So no, I agree with you. I think that's got to be a focus. But again, like we were talking earlier with our secondary, you have to be within 20 yards to create.
Oh gosh! Oh wow! Well, yeah, no doubt about it. And I like to use baseball analogies because I'm a baseball guy, right? So, the best lineups for me aren't guys that like 9 guys that all do the same thing, right? Yep. Like as great as Aaron Judge is, there's a lot of swing and miss there, and if you have 9 of those guys in your lineup, you're probably going to score more runs than anybody else in the major leagues, but that's going to be because you win 21-0 on one day, and then you're going to strike out 21 times the next day and lose 8-1, right? I mean, there's just going to be boom or bust. So I like the lineups to where you have 3 or 4 guys that, hey, they walk a lot. The 3 true outcome guys, they walk a lot, they strike out a lot, and they hit a lot of home runs. I like the guys at the top of your lineup that hit for high average, get on base, and then the guys at the bottom of the lineup that can just move the ball forward. They can hit behind runners. I'm kind of old school setting up a baseball offensive lineup. I believe that creates dynamics. I believe that creates an offense that can score in different ways. You can beat different types of pitchers, that kind of thing. So kind of where I'm tying this into with Oklahoma State on the defensive side, I think very specifically you're going to have safeties that so this is how you get away from the overpay is that you have an identity. It's like the Toronto Blue Jays. They had an identity. Just Ernie Clement, just put the ball in play, right? Nathan Lucas, just put the damn ball in play, right? They had an identity, and their role players weren't trying to be like their 4 and 5 holes. They were just trying to do what they're capable of inside the role. So another part of Moneyball is, well, as a defensive end, I need a guy that can rush. I need a guy that can stop the run. As a safety, I need a guy that's very smart, knows when to rotate, knows when to get over the top of the guy versus coming underneath. Doesn't have to necessarily be the greatest player, but maybe the smartest. As a corner, maybe I need a guy that's 6'2" that can cover. But what I'm trying to say is, more so than just going and saying, hey, here's the best player available, I need to find the best fit for what I actually need out of each position, which means you identify what everybody's role is. That's a big part of Moneyball, not overpaying for people too.
Yeah, and football is the exact same way. There's a time where I need a guy like Rashawn Woods who can just go get a jump ball.
Yes.
But then there's a time where I need a tight end that I can dump it to, and get me 5, 6, 7 yards, and then maybe he's tough to bring down. Get an extra 3 or 4, get us the first down. So I agree with you. I think that's kind of what the way Coach Morris is going to do it is okay. We need this type of running back for these situations.
Yes.
We need this type of running back for this particular situation. Because again, if you mold everybody in the same mold, okay, well that may not be what you need. Baseball and softball are the exact same way. Sometimes I need somebody to lay down a bunt. Well, okay, yeah. Aaron Judge is not your guy to lay down a bunt. But I got another guy over here that, I can put him in, and that's the guy to do it, that kind of
thing. I need somebody that can hit a right-hander. Well, he's only a 220 hitter, but he's actually good against right-handers, right? That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
That can play
if you're me, you weren't good against righties or lefties. No.
Or curveballs.
Yeah, Yeah, I was
that's
Toronto.
all of us, right?
I was Toronto. Straight ball I hit very well. It's that curveball. That's what I'm afraid. Yeah.
Holy cow, this guy hits for a ton. Why hasn't anybody ever picked him up? Hey, another curveball. Oh, okay. That's why. Major League and Bull Durham. You guys and gals out there, you wonderful Oklahoma State Cowboys and Cowgirls out there can disagree all you want. Bull Durham and Major League are the 2 best. Natural is good too, but for me, Major League and Bull Durham, 2 best baseball movies.
Yeah. I'd throw Field of Dreams in there too, but I'd say, but Bull Durham
and The Natural.
I think the thing that got me with Bull Durham and Major League, for people that haven't been out there, there is so much truth in all of that. It's
there is. Well, Oklahoma City has Crash Davis, Ryan Ward just set all the records, and nobody knows about it because it's happened at the minor league level, right? Okay, man. This has been a lot of fun talking about football. We got about 10 minutes left. Let's shift our focus to basketball. A huge game on Tuesday night. UCF is hot. They just beat Kansas by 6 points. Now, we say this every year about Kansas. This isn't your dad's Kansas team. I mean, it seems like we say that every year, and every year they win the Big 12, and they figure it out sometime in late February and March, and they end up being very good. But first of all, before we get to the UCF game and moving forward, thoughts on Saturday? I kind of gave mine. I'm not going to throw a fit like a 2-year-old toddler like I did after the OU game, which I'm never going to apologize for because that's what happens to me when Oklahoma State loses to OU, and I never want that to change about the way that my passion towards OSU and that rivalry, to be honest with you. But having said that, give me your evaluation of the basketball team, what you see now.
Like I said, I usually try to stay level-headed on things. Did I expect us to go into Lubbock and win? Not really. But I expected us to play. I expected it to be a lot more competitive than it was. I can't remember the statistics offhand, but our perimeter defense was not very good. They out-rebounded us. I tell you, one thing that I did notice, and again, I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but if I remember right, the number of assists were very high for Texas Tech, very low for us. In fact, if I remember right, all of their starters had over 10 points, and we had 2 guys over 10 points, and that goes back to the whole thing is, okay, yeah, it's great if you got a Cade Cunningham and he goes off, but he scores 40 points for you. That's one thing, but we don't have that. We don't have that guy. So I think that was a disappointing thing to me. I think this upcoming game is one of those games where, okay, again, I was not expecting to win in Lubbock, but if you want to make the NCAA tournament, this is one of those games you got to have.
Talk about UCF?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. You might only win 3 or 4 Big 12 games if you don't win this one.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying is if you have any chance of getting into the NCAA tournament, this is one that you need. Because the tournament committee is going to look at that Tech loss, and it's, okay, Tech's a really good ball club. It's on the road. Nobody's going to hold that against you. You lose to UCF, okay, if it comes down to it, well, that's one of those that can make or break you on Selection Sunday. So this next one we got coming up is critical. We've got to play a lot better on this next one.
So kind of what I hear you saying was the Texas Tech game was kind of a freebie. It could have only helped Oklahoma State and not hurt them. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's. I didn't like how we played at all. I don't want anybody to think I was not happy with what I saw. There's a lot of things we're not doing right. But I also don't think it's one where, okay, if we will take care of business against some of these other teams, it's one that it won't hurt you quite as badly. You know what I mean? Because nobody, if you go and remember back in the day when you went into Allen Fieldhouse and you lost, shoot, Eddie Sutton. In fact, if I may check me on the stat on this. I'm
never
sure somebody will. I don't think he ever won an Allen Fieldhouse.
He did not. He should have whenever Randy went for 43 or whatever it was. Of course, Big Country didn't score a point that day, but should have won a couple of games, but never did.
Yeah. So I mean, and Eddie Sutton was a phenomenal coach. So it's not that's one of the beauties of basketball that we don't get that luxury in football. Is a couple of losses it's not the end of the world. And again, Tech's a good ball club. Nobody's going to hold that against you. We don't right now, in my opinion, the only bad loss, I don't know. I mean, OU's they're average. They're not a top 10 team, but Texas Tech is a really good ball club. But again, if we want to get in the tournament, we've got to start winning some of these other games that are winnable. I'll put it that way.
It's so hard to build a program in the Big 12 because even if you go whatever Oklahoma State is 12-2, the Big 12 is so good that, I mean, it's going to be really hard to win 9 or 10 games to get to 8 more wins to get to 20. That's going to be hard. I mean, it's just hard. It's hard to build from where Oklahoma State was at to where they need to get to in this conference.
Yeah. It's that if there's one thing about the rebuild is this conference isn't doing us any favors. There's no gimmies on the schedule at all.
Nope.
So no, I'm looking forward to the next game against UCF. But again, if we want to accomplish the goals that we want to, this is one we got to have. So
the girls had a good bounce back against Houston. Houston's not very good, although they did sneak up on the Cowgirls last year. that may be the game why the Cowgirls did not win a game in the NCAA tournament, because I think that affected their seeding. They got a much tougher first-round game because of the Houston game last year. So they took care of business there. The game last Wednesday, I know you go to a lot of the girls' games, so give us your evaluation on that and where you think the girls' program's at right now.
The deal with the Baylor game is we went on about a 6-7 minute scoring drought in the fourth quarter, and you just, I mean, that was it.
Was that us or them doing that?
A little bit of both. I mean, but again, I mean, I don't care how good Baylor's defense is, you've got to find a way to score over a 6, 7, 8 minute time frame. I mean, that's just, there's no other way to look at that. I think the Cowgirls are a good, solid team. I think that they have a very good shot of making the NCAA tournament. But again, the thing that I think that is, and I understand, I'm sure every basketball program in America has got some of this just because of the way basketball is. But I feel like we could, Baylor should have been a win. I mean, just being straight honest, that should have been a win, and it ends up being a loss. And that's the kind of stuff that, when it comes down to it, if you don't get as good a seeding as you'd like, or you're not competing for the conference championship, you look back on those games and it's like, well, if we could have just scored a couple of buckets, just stop the bleeding, go down to get somebody get a free throw, for crying out loud, drive the bucket, force the official to make a call, put you on the line, get a couple of free throws, something. I'm not gonna lie, I was really frustrated by that Baylor loss. That one frustrated me quite a bit. Now, credit to the girls, they came back, they did what they were supposed to do against Houston. The Cowgirls are a much better ball club than Houston, but I think in order for us to take the next step as a program, we've got to start we got to start winning some of those games like the Baylor game. I mean, that's just that's my honest take, is we've got to start winning some of those. We can't crumble under pressure.
I'm going to use another baseball analogy, but it just always, whenever, like in the first 3 or 4 innings, it seems like you've had scoring opportunities everywhere. You've had a leadoff guy on, you've had guys in scoring position, guys at third base with less than one out. You look up in the 5th inning, and it feels like you're dominating the game. You've had one scoring opportunity after the other, and it's like 1-0. You've hit in a double play here, a bad strikeout there, a pop-up here or there, and you just didn't take advantage of your opportunities. And as a coach, about the 4th inning, you're like, I don't want to have these thoughts in my head because they're negative and pessimistic, but I've been around the game long enough to know, typically speaking, when you haven't taken advantage of your opportunities like this, you end up losing. That's kind of what that Baylor game feels like to me for the Cowgirls, to where you squandered a scoring opportunity and you just hope it doesn't come back to bite you at the end of the year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, now again, there's nothing we can do about it now after the fact. I was really glad to see the girls bounce. It was a good bounce back game against Houston. But again, we need to take what happened in that Baylor game, and we need to not let that one happen again, kind of a mentality. Again, I think this team has got talent. They can shoot the three-pointer very well. So, I mean, they're still a very dangerous team from that standpoint, that, if this team gets hot from three, anybody better look out. I mean, if the Cowgirls are shooting the ball well from beyond the arc, they could beat anybody. But again, that's it's the risk reward thing with the 3-pointer. That can happen, but you also can then, if you go cold, you also could get beat by some teams that you probably shouldn't either. I think that's the challenge right now with Cowgirls.
Got to get Staley Hurd going too. We got about 30 seconds left.
Yeah. Staley Hurd, everything. If Staley Hurd is going, and we get her, get the ball to her in space, let her do her thing, Cowgirls are going to do really well. If not, there are other players on this team that are good, that can shoot, but right now we need everything to go through Staley Hurd.
Absolutely, Scott. Great job tonight. This has been a lot of fun. It is super exciting to be a Cowboy fan right now. I know it doesn't seem like it. Basketball fell flat on their face. Girls, kind of one of those mediocre type moments of the season right now. Football just had a bad, but obviously there's a lot of excitement with Eric Morris. I really think this is an exciting time to be an Oklahoma State fan. Very proud of everybody in charge for putting the best foot forward. Whether all this works out or not, I think we'd all have to agree everybody's putting their best foot forward. So thank you so much, and great job tonight, man.
Thanks.